All right, you guys, welcome to Car Talk, where we talk about, well, cars, but also everything surrounding our scene, our culture, our industry. And I'm your host, Big Mike. This is
Ryan Bossery from Rywire.
And we are going to go right into it. Today, we're going to talk about SEMA.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Right, but not just SEMA, right? I mean, SEMA. A lot of you guys will know what it is. Ryan and I have been blessed to be a part of it in various ways. Sometimes in a competition, sometimes exhibition, or just as a display, right? And his customers work, friends. We're all very integrated. And I know for a lot of you guys watching SEMA, sort of a pinnacle, right? It's sort of like the ultimate show, exhibition, display of the automotive culture. And you know what?
Everything.
Yeah, network. Okay, so that's a point we're gonna touch on.
It's a lot more to it than just like, it's not as glorified car show, right?
Okay,
it's actually like a way where smaller businesses can become bigger businesses.
Yes.
Big businesses can find ways to get directly with the tuners.
Yes.
And like there's a lot to it. There's so much more.
So Ryan brings up some very, very good points. A lot of people see it maybe because they've watched him or myself compete. So you think SEMA, you think Battle of the Builders, you think competition, you think winning something, which is all a very relevant part of SEMA. But in so many other ways, can you really take what that because it's a trade show, not a car show, it's a trade show.
First and
foremost. And what I believe is a big disconnect is that a lot of people believe that is the pinnacle in only one way, like winning something. And it's really not about that. Yes, there's a competition. Yes, you can choose to enter the Battle of the Builders if you really wanted to. But what it is a way for you to connect with people outside of your particular realm, your industry, because everyone there, it's a private trade show. So you have 168,000 people there last year, and every one of those people in some way is a somebody. Okay, they're owners, they're exhibitors, they're builders, they're fabricators, they're painters, they're
or linked directly to
any one of those people.
Really, it's like linked to a shop.
Right. Networking is key.
Yeah, or they're so high in the builder chain
yes.
that they go to, hey, Toyo Tires, I have this thing.
Yes.
Hey, this company, that company.
Yes.
I have this thing that I'm doing. Let me support you with whatever product that you want to now release.
Yes.
And then, use that with all their people to build something that is what you see.
Right.
So it's somebody directly related to a builder, somebody directly related to a shop.
Yeah.
And that's really what it.
And it's crucial, you guys, because you do have to know somebody, you do have to purchase a pass. You can't just get in, right? But for those of you who are in the culture and in the industry, with a little bit of effort, with a little bit of work, you may be able to find your way in through a business that a company, etc. So however you go about doing that, if you have the ability to do that, it is an amazing opportunity to see any type and every type of build and really immerse yourself. So artistically, you can take inspiration. You can, if you're into reality TV and you want to see the Chip Fooses and these like really big name guys, right? They're there signing, they have builds on display, but also the grassroots. He mentioned Toyo Tires, right? Stan at Toyo has created a section that's become its own kind of realm. It's outside, so people would think, oh, it's outside, how good could it be? But it's really gotten turned into its own like miniature
and it's very
event.
Tuner focused.
Yes, he does keep his eye on that. From Euro, Japanese, a lot of really cool stuff. Shout out to Stan.
A lot of inside stuff might be more focused around your like hot rods and your extremely well put together, very address paint job kind of cars, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That aren't the tuner market.
Right.
Toyo, that section happens to be, our demographic, right?
Yeah, definitely. So for those of you in the import tuner kind of realm, he hits a perfect point. The Toyo Tread Pass is a place where, Stan keeps his eye on that part of the culture and these new builds. Whatever is in the Tread Pass hasn't been displayed before. It's a debut. So that's kind of a really cool thing. And like Ryan was saying, it's right outside of Central Hall. When you get into Central Hall, which is the performance hall, you're going to see everything from turbos and superchargers and just anything you can imagine performance and engine and motorsport related. But there's only going to be so many tuner type builds, right? So mine was in the Torco Oils booth, which was in Central Hall, which would have been one of those ones that if you didn't think there was anything in there and you didn't kind of map out your route, you may have missed it. But it was right next to Willwood, right by Garrett Turbo, in between Toyota and Honda. So it was right in this like really, really cool area. But there's always a little bit of maneuvering every year, so the layout's gonna be different. But talking about the Tread Pass, talking about this curated debut builds, you, right? You had it's been a couple times, but
yeah,
last year
with Toyo, I think I displayed 2 vehicles.
Yes,
so we did the white S2000 here, and then the red EA.
Right, last year.
Last year.
So yeah, this was 2 years ago, and then last year he had Brandon. Shout out to Brandon.
Yeah, we brought Brandon's car.
Yeah, brought Brandon's car over to the Tread Pass, and that did very well. There's all these other crazy cars, and it kind of adds to that eclectic gathering.
Yeah.
And so mine was inside Central Hall the year before this one, and so on and so forth, right? But this year, right? In this particular instance, you have something that you're debuting.
Yeah.
Right? And this one's not a client's car like this or the EA.
Correct.
It is a personal build.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And
this personal build that I'm doing like kind of collaboration with Belade Sports next door.
Okay.
In the sense that they're going to supply a bunch of the parts.
Okay.
And we're kind of like both doing the car.
Okay.
It's gonna like title wise, like who actually owns it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be Alex and I, the owner of Belade. Like it's our. Like,
so it's joint in that sense.
Yeah, it's joint in that sense.
I see. I didn't know you were doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've got that collaboration, but there's a lot of S2000s. There's a lot of crazy S2000 Aero. It would almost be silly to try to design your own because you have Voltex and Varus and just anything you can imagine from mild to wild.
Yeah.
Right? Power plants, people have done Ks, people have done Js, people have done LSs. We talk all the time, and it's not necessarily on purpose trying to be a step ahead. I think there are people who do things so that they can be a step ahead, and that is actually the sole purpose. And I can't really knock that, right? You want to kind of keep pushing the envelope, but it ends up being borderline solely for almost like the attention of doing something first.
Yeah, like let's say when you're the first to do this distributor's new body kit for that car.
Sure.
Like I always get this like weird. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense in my head, right? Like I don't want to say names, but let's say like a Japanese tuner like Liberty Walk.
Okay.
Oh, I have this new car. And they never done one before, and I want to just be the first one in the world or the first one in the United States. And then it's really cool like that day, and then after 80 other people have this same body kit, then where's that feel? Like you're like, I don't really care for it anymore because 80 other people around me have it, right?
Sure, like what happened to the Supra.
Oh, sure, yeah, exactly. So I guess like when you say like, the first one too, it's like there's that theory of people that want to be the first one to have this certain thing or this certain part.
Sure.
But then there's the first or the people that are trying to kind of lead the way and develop new trends even. So there's
innovations.
Exactly.
Right. And so you guys, a lot of I think the thing that's really cool about Car Talk and what Ryan and I are doing here is that we are amongst these names. A lot of you see the plaques, and we've been on the covers of magazines. But for those of you that follow me personally, those people that follow Ryan, you're gonna understand that we're not industry people. We're enthusiasts at heart first.
Right.
And those of you that don't know that, that might be a bit of a surprise, right? Because we get it, right? There's a certain amount of exposure that social media gives people. And if the only time you've seen a person's name, a business name, a logo is in certain contexts, you might think that that's the only thing that it's about. And that's actually really not true. So for some reference of that, I've done a behind the scenes vlog with Ryan on my personal IGTV, and there's magazines written that he's been interviewed. That this particular cover that we did together was an interview style, so you can read that one from Super Street, and it's not very technical about the car so much as it is about our take on things. So that was a really cool angle that they did with that. But the point is it context matters, right? And getting to know people and the why that they do things. It's really about that. And Ryan, it comes from grassroots. We were into street racing and cars and gangsters that we were around that had really cool cars. That's really the history of it. If you guys watch a video I did, I've talked about the history of that and magazines and how in that era, that was everything to us. This is almost like interesting in 2020, but these are magazines that are cut up to make these, which you could do with a super high resolution photo that someone takes that would look just as good. But we just come from that era where magazines were everything, and we have the ability to sit here and talk with you guys as some people have called us figureheads, which honestly Ryan and I are not really into all that. Like, it's a very nice term, but it's really, we just care about the scene and the industry and the culture, pushing progress, pushing excellence, pushing innovation. And that's what Rywire has really done for the past 20 years, 15, 17. I've known Ryan for 17 years now.
Yeah.
But this build that he's doing, which I'm going to pick his brain about it because I know a lot about it, but even I don't know everything about it. And this is a really cool opportunity for you guys to be right here with us as some of this stuff comes out, because he has put it on his IG. There have been some expressions of what it's going to be about. And for those of you that don't know, it is an electric S2000. So this isn't crazy aero. This isn't massive horsepower and up pipes and down pipes and open-ended. This is an EV S2000, right? So we've talked about EV stuff, the technology of it. In many ways, that's the future. But was that all it is? EV is the future, and I want to make an S2000 or a Honda EV. Just that simple?
It wasn't as cut and dry as that.
Okay, what was it then?
Okay, so I have another project that I haven't really even started working on yet.
Okay.
It's a 911, cool 911. I wanted to do something that was like a parallel hybrid.
Yes.
So something that would be a propulsion.
Gas and electric.
Yeah, like the NSX, let's say, right? So same thing as the NSX on paper, as far as gasoline electric hybrid, et cetera, et cetera. So that was kind of my first step. I was like, I don't want to go straight electric. It almost seems too easy. This is just how I felt at the beginning. Let's call it 2 years ago.
When so you felt started planning, too easy in that I can take the chassis, fit in electric,
a motor,
and then be done.
Some batteries.
So you wanted to do gas hybrid.
Yeah,
gas electric hybrid.
I wanted a challenge, but I didn't want to jump all the way into EV.
Sure.
So, that car was very slowly getting body work done, and it's just been a process. Okay.
Yes.
So that car, it's not even on my scope right now. About maybe, let's call it a year ago, maybe 8 months ago, I was like, you know what? I kind of want something to warm myself up to that whole thing. That car is going to be pretty crazy. It's going to be a very big challenge. It's almost going to be, I kind of call it like my life's work.
Okay.
Okay. I wanted something to get my feet wet with first, right? So, actually I was helping out BC with some stuff, and he's been big into the whole 911 full EV conversion. Okay. I have another customer down the road, and he bought a bunch of PDMs from me. I'm talking like 15, 20 units at a time, right?
Okay.
And then he's down the street, and I'm like, what does this guy do? He's like, I do all these EV cars. So I want to check this out. So then I saw all the stuff that he was doing.
Yes.
So between BC, what he was doing, random people online, there's been some EV builds that I'm like, oh, that's interesting, right? So I'm not trying to say that the gasoline stuff is boring, but I've been doing that for 25 years.
Okay.
Just, learning and stuff. And I feel like this car, the Integra, was, that was all I could do at that time. I put all my heart and soul and money and everything into that car. And I'm not trying to say it was easy, because it absolutely wasn't. But electric propulsion and the batteries and the motors and all these pieces that go along with a true EV conversion,
yes,
is all foreign to me. Okay?
Sure.
Or it was, let's say 8 months ago, it was foreign to me, as foreign as it gets.
You're like, oh yeah, Teslas are electric, and that's all.
I understand that they have a 3-phase motor,
yes,
and it goes through an inverter, and then the inverter is high voltage, and then the packs are 400 volts, let's call them, And I get that part, but I knew nothing more than that.
Okay? Wait, which right there is already more than what a lot of people step down, step up transformers and 3-pack. People are already going to be like, if you've never taken or read about even basic electronics, that's not really going to make any sense, right?
Yeah, you're going to be
like, sure. That's why I said Tesla's. People are like, oh, it's an electric car, and Tesla's an electric car, and that's the extent.
Yeah, and then they might think, oh, well, an electric car is probably pretty easy, just it's a motor turning the wheels, one-to-one drive, there's no, like, gears.
Yes.
It's got to be, like, just put a motor in between your axles and you're done.
But it's not quite that simple.
It's, like, I'm not trying to say, like, 2 years ago I thought it was that easy.
Yes.
But it seemed it was more, it just seemed very simple.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm not really interested. I want to make it like both, But now I realize that a properly done EV conversion is actually very expensive. I'm learning that. It's very a lot of componentry and a lot of development that hasn't really even been developed yet.
Sure.
There's things that people I go, wait, what? They don't have this for this convert? Like, how do you not? Oh, we use it from like a house or like.
Right. Weird. So it's not automotive spec. They're just taking something that exists, piecing it together.
It's very grassroots.
Which is really not all that different than what we do.
Yeah.
It's not. Interesting.
So then I'm like, well, damn, like gasoline engine stuff has gotten so out of control.
Yeah.
With just, taking 4-cylinder engines and making 1,500 horsepower.
Yeah. Normally now.
That is very expensive. You have to have, you have to be messing with these things for 30, 40 years to have a grasp. And, I mean, sure, I understand it, and I do this stuff every day.
Yes.
But I kind of wanted like a new challenge. I wanted that feeling back 15 years ago.
Okay.
When I was just learning like how things were really starting to work, and I was kind of nerding out on it and like really just like a sponge, just absorbing all this information. And the EV world is so primitive that I feel like I can learn with everybody else.
Okay.
And there's a lot of information there that can be learned, and I can absorb it very quickly.
Yes.
And I feel like I could help the community, and I can make products.
Okay.
And it's a whole new thing.
Yes.
It's literally a whole new thing. So with that being said, I'm kind of like all in. Like this build I'm just every day I'm learning, I'm looking at things, I'm researching.
Yes.
Things I've never thought about putting on cars, or theories of cooling and all these things that go along with it.
Sure.
It's really exciting, and it's really neat to be able to learn all this information. So, yeah, dude, this build is kind of blowing my mind.
Dude, as you guys can see, right? Like he goes into like a zone. Right?
Yeah.
but I don't mean that as a bad thing, because it's like when something's interesting, when something's fascinating, right? When it's new. It's not boring, right? In fact, it's foreign. Mm-hmm. You have to read and learn, and it humbles you, right? Because, when you try to push an envelope for the sake of just doing it first, there's a danger to that, because you rush and you're like, I just need to get it done first. And a lot of times, they said there's 3 rules in business. You're first, you cheat, or you're better, right? I don't even know if that's the right order. I've watched that in movies. I've read that, right? You either be first, you be better or best at it, or you cheat, right? We won't cheat, right? And you can't necessarily
always be first.
You can't always be first. Other people have better resources. They thought of it first. But what you can do is you can execute better, right? And that's kind of what it's been. I mean, when you can be better and first, okay. But that's not always possible, right? And so as you can see, whether it be, coming up with the wiring. For those of you that aren't familiar with the GT3 Integra, I think even to this day, it's sort of just completely understated what exactly was happening with that car, right? Mm-hmm. And the S2000, in some ways, ITB, S2000, fully built, high revving, etc., but a lot of people still miss the nuances of a Mugen base wide body, right? And the wide body on my car, same thing. To this day, there are people who don't understand how they see concavity on the front wheels, and they're like, wait a minute, I just read something in your 17.9.5 at 0.1 degree negative. It's sitting, square. And they're like, how is that possible? And I said, well, it's wide, And so sometimes there's a lot of work done to make it look like little work was done, right? Sometimes there's sharp lines or aesthetically, and sometimes it's like super loud. And there's a way to indicate that something's been done, and sometimes you want to do a lot to make it look like not that much has been done, except for those with the discerning eye, or the discerning ear, and they're like, wait a minute, something sounds different. Or in the case of an S2000 that's going to start and just start moving when you don't hear anything, then someone's going to be like, whoa, 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 right? And so that's kind of the thing. I think a lot of people end up doing something so that it draws the most attention literally.
Right.
One step. It's checkers, not chess. And I think that's only going to get you so far. If you're willing to play the game a little bit differently, and instead of just moving in this checkers basic type movement, but you can do, jumping and go to the left and, jump all the way back, even move backwards so that you can then move laterally. It's really crucial, and that's hard in a day and age where patience is sort of not really a thing anymore. You gotta go, you gotta do it first, you gotta put the content out. And so this S2000 that he's like totally, you guys can see it, right? I've known him for so long, and even I, totally, we sort of feed off of each other with creative stuff, and what do you think about this? And seeing this S2000, I mean, it's behind us, you guys. I mean, on his YouTube channel, there's stuff that's showing it step by step. I have a behind the scenes vlog that I've done with him, and another one where you guys get a little bit of feel of other stuff going on. It's not just the S2, but it's just an example of stuff. And right now with the future electronics, what a lot of people don't realize is how fast this thing is going to be able to be for what's going on. Okay, I mean, these motors are 1-to-1, so if you have like a 150 horsepower motor, what equates to horsepower, and you have one on each wheel, 150 doesn't sound like a lot, but it's 150 foot-pounds of torque.
1 RPM?
at 1 RPM, okay? So there's no buildup of this combustion going on to like create a power band. You're talking about when you push on the throttle, if the car makes 400 or 300, it makes 300 instantly.
Yeah, and of course there's things that you can adjust. You
Sure.
can adjust like a traction control
Correct.
strategy.
Dial it in so you don't just break the tires loose, because at that point, the tires would be the weakest link.
Yeah.
If you have 300 foot-pounds of torque at 1% throttle, your tires are going to instantly break loose.
Yeah.
But the ability to do that is wild, right? So it's really cool. So what is your final number from what you're setting up electronically and electrically for that S2000 to put out?
Oh, let's call it like, if I wanted to break it down as like horsepower
Correct.
number.
Well, what is it, kilowatts peak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just call it horsepower though.
Sure.
It's just easier for us to like understand and give us something to have it, equal.
Yeah.
600, 650.
600, 650.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be essentially what like a Tesla would do.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
A non-dual motor, because I'm using a performance rear motor.
Yes. So you're keeping it rear-wheel drive.
It's rear-wheel drive only.
Okay, yeah. Rear-wheel drive, single electric motor.
Single electric motor.
To make about 600, what would be the equivalent of horsepower.
Yeah.
And like we just talked about, it would make 600 at 1 RPM. But he's going to dial that back with tuning.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of tuning that we can do with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people don't realize the extent of the ability to tune these things.
Yeah.
Tune them. Like when we went from throttle cables, right? Which is a 1-to-1. You set it up to your pedal. When you depress the pedal, it pulls on the cable, opens up the throttle body. When they came up with drive-by-wire, now you have a digital tune to your pedal. So even though it would make no sense whatsoever, you could have your pedal go a 10% travel instead of pedal to the metal where you floor it. You could just go 10% with your foot and the throttle would open 100%.
Right.
But
then what you could do and what people will do is they'll grab like a wheel speed, right?
Uh-huh.
And then they'll make a graph on their software and go, okay, at this moving speed, I want, the throttle to compensate,
yes,
etc. And then you can then all of a sudden, now you have all this control.
Yes.
You're taking all these different things, and then now you're taking the human error out of it, right? So now the human just wanting to 100% throttle, because in their head, you go faster down the street or the strip or whatever,
Yes.
the harder you push on the gas.
Yes.
But if your wheels are spinning, what your software can do for you is take that driven speed, and it can actually modulate your percentage of throttle that you're assisting. So you could just go 100%, but then you might be at a potentiometer of, let's say it's like, it only needs 10%
Yes.
at the very beginning, then it ramps it all the way up to 100, maybe in a very quick window,
Yes.
maybe in a very extended window, just depending on how much power you're actually putting down on the ground.
Well, the thing that's really cool about what he's talking about is a lot of the time attack guys do that because you have GPS maps, right? And then they have the elevation and yaw and lean and torque.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of these crazy race cars like F1, they log all of this, right?
They get a lot of data.
A lot. And what they do is they'll overlap that. So on this track, at this clockwise configuration, at this turn, we found the fastest lap was I'm at this percent throttle with this much percent yaw and lean and everything. And you can data log that so that you can overlap your maps and get to a point where you now the system will modulate it almost for you.
Yeah,
I mean,
more or less, yeah.
you're still controlling the vehicle, but this is
it
the way.
It takes a bit of the human out of it.
A bit of the human out of it.
Yeah.
And so I understand, speaking of that, that's also why a lot of people are like, there's no driver experience, there's no heart or soul to electric cars. That's a very prevailing sentiment. What do you think about that?
Okay, so I have a S2000 I daily drive, and it's gasoline. It's completely stock.
Yes.
Right? And I really like S2000. So as I'm driving home from work or something like that, or maybe I'm taking a drive, I'm like, why do I like the S2000?
Okay.
I like the way I sit in the car. I like the way everything feels around me. I'm short in stature, so it's like, the room and how I feel, like how I fit. I like the way that the car handles. I like the power of it being rear wheel drive.
Yes.
So far, we haven't said anything about EV, right?
Right.
That would be the same. Everything would be the same.
Okay.
But I really like the shifter. Okay, so I really realized that in a stock S2000 experience, I don't care about the sound. I don't even have an aftermarket exhaust on that car. Sound, okay, cool. Electric motor makes its own sound, right? Traction control and things like this that you can do, that's all beneficial, so I don't see that being a problem. The issue that I see is the shifter.
What do you mean the issue?
The issue, if I was going to take this car
Yes.
that I'm daily driving, and if I'm going to now convert this to EV...
You want the shifter to be the same.
I mean, that's one of the things that I will miss.
You want the feel.
I want that feel.
Which will be eliminated.
It will be eliminated. So how can I get some of that feel back?
Okay.
I mean, short of using a multi-speed to drive an electric motor, which you could totally do.
Yeah.
But in my case, what I plan to do, it's going to be a park neutral drive. Like, there's not going to be gears in it.
Yes.
Okay? A 1-to-1. So that is something that I'm definitely going to miss, and something that I would love to be able to retain somehow. But everything else on the car is pretty much I'm still going to get, even in an EV platform.
The feel, the aero, the shaping, the cabin, the cockpit feel.
Yeah, how it's going to turn in, how it's going to apply power. All those things I can achieve.
Have you been able to look into the weight ratio? What's going to be the front to back weight ratio of this car when you're done?
I'm going to try, man. I'm going to try to get it close to
48-52?
Yeah. I'm going to try to get it close to a 50-50 as much as possible.
Isn't that what S2000 is stock? 48-52?
I don't remember. We could ask next door.
I think it is. Because it wasn't a perfect 50-50. I think it was 48-52.
Yeah.
But anyways, you're trying to get front to back even.
Yeah, but...
Well, would you add ballast if you had to do so?
No, because I'm already going to be overweight.
Okay.
I'll already be... Well, there's definitely things I'm going to be taking out, like the soft top and stuff like that.
Sure.
I'll just do like a carbon hard or, something very...
Yes.
Something less weight. Wherever I can, I'll be taking out weight.
Yes.
Like emissions and all that stuff's coming out. But I'm trying to put things where there was stuff of hopefully around the same weight. Like in the back there's a gas tank that's not going to be there anymore.
Right.
There's all these things that are going to be
and moved. The weight of a gas tank that's full of gas.
Full of gas.
Yes.
The gas tank itself. the differential, all these things are back there. Well, now it's going to be all replaced by a drive motor.
Yes.
Right? So
you guys have, go to Ryan's YouTube channel. You can start to see some of these things unfold for those of you that are tuning in and haven't done that yet. And stay, subscribe to the channel because you'll see that progression as we get closer to SEMA and after the fact, And also on my page, I'm going to be able to do some behind the scenes stuff when I come over and you guys can see what he's talking about. He had this whole setup with the the electronics sort of splayed out and you could see it in the crate.
Yeah,
it was really cool.
So
really cool.
I got the drive motor shipped to me on a pallet.
Yeah.
But then what they did was they actually built out the pallet to a big box.
Yes.
And then I was like, well, they made little mounts.
You're right. It was super cool.
I was like, this is like too nice to
tear apart.
What I ended up doing is I just pop holes in the sides because you shouldn't be running the differential just open with no weight. So I threw axles in it.
Okay.
Right. And then I just like hung them through some holes. And so the axles were, would spin. And I basically wired everything up. I took the high voltage packs and just kind of daisy chained them in, put power to it all. Did all the programming, had my PDM like switching all the high voltage relays and all these things like that.
Yeah.
And I was able to get the motor to actually drive and spin.
Yeah, I watched
it's pretty cool.
It's pretty
box.
damn cool in a box. But you know what? The progression of this is going to be really cool. I know that a lot of you are honestly probably just wanting to see it because it's cool, but also you're just like, I mean, it doesn't rev, it doesn't spool, it doesn't blow off, it doesn't do all those different types of things.
But when it's done, I think that I'll see because I don't know.
Sure.
Dude, could you believe I've never driven an electric car before?
Yeah, you know what, man? I don't know if I've sat in a
I was
Tesla.
gonna drive BC's Porsche.
Yeah.
And then it was like got too late, and then we were gonna drive it, and we were like, anyway.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen, and I was like, shit, rain check.
Yeah.
And then coronavirus and all these things.
You know what would be cool is if you don't ever drive one until you drive your first electric build.
I'm like kind of wanting to. Just
that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
I've driven in a lot of Teslas, but I haven't actually piloted.
Sure. I mean, look.
To this point,
it's a very interesting thing, right? And the thing that I find fascinating about everything that Ryan's saying is I like all of it, but I haven't been driven enough to try it for myself.
Yeah.
I just haven't. And I can't really say why, because I actually am not one of the people that thinks it's stupid and I hate it, right? Technology is here, whether we like it or not. Our ability to do this video and to have Car Talk and you guys watch is technology. The recording of it, the audio of it, the sounds, it's all technology. So you can't like really pick and choose. You can choose to build your own, like what I'm building right now for a client. There's nothing electric on it, right? Well,
talk about it.
Well, okay, so once again, you guys, what he's doing. Well, look, before I even get into that is, this is going to debut. Of course, with all things being equal and progressing as far as COVID-19 and other things going on in the country, that SEMA 2020 happens. As of right now, there's no indication that it will not. It's full speed ahead, and this is where Ryan's EV S2000 is going to debut. It's going to debut at the Turn 14 booth. Okay, Turn 14, shout out to Daryl, all the staff over there. I've had the opportunity to go in, check them out, the camaraderie of Turn 14, the growth of Turn 14. Wild, man. They are an amazing company. And Ryan, all Rywire products are now available through Turn 14 distribution. But more importantly, they have their setup, Central Hall. The last SEMA, they had Dai Yoshihara's AE86, which if you don't know about that, you guys look that up. It's power plant, it's wide body, such a dope build. And they're over there in Central, not down by where my car was, where Honda, Toyota, and the Toyo Tread Pass are, and Torco and Vibrant Performance. For those of you that have been there, you're gonna know that region. It's way up top where Lexus and some of those other companies are in that other piece of Central.
Yeah. I think they got a larger booth this year too.
Okay, so you guys,
and it was already like a huge.
Yeah, they have a good solid space. So if they're going bigger, that's wild, right?
Yeah.
So you guys really take the time to check this out. I'm gonna be with Ryan a lot in between. If the client that I'm building the car for decides that it's cool or lets me make the decision, then I'll probably honestly debut it at SEMA for no reason other than because it hasn't been seen before in the form that I'll have it, and it'd be a cool place to debut it, right? There's no competition. None of us are entering the battle because I think a lot of people immediately think that that's what we're gonna do, and that's not what we're gonna do. I mean, it's crossed our minds, but no, this is about personal build innovation, and we're talking about electric.
I'm actually building mine for a daily driver.
For a day, see?
Like
okay.
Literally, it's a daily
So the
driver.
thing that's cool about Ryan's is he lives in a proximity where it isn't like a lot of people in Southern California stuck in an hour of traffic and a distance, which it would be able to do. But I think a lot of people are still kind of sketch. If you map out your drive and there's like, where's an electric station?
Yeah.
Right?
But if you're completely stuck in traffic, it's gonna like
take a lesser amount.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, true. So what I wanted to do, with this particular client's build was, I didn't want to undo gasoline. Like I said, I think EV stuff is crazy cool, especially this whole like immediate power instantly at like 1%, 1 RPM. But it's a turbo build, and pretty much any kind of turbo build has been done, right? It's not about reinventing the wheel, but there's a certain a way of executing something. There's a certain way you can put something together that is just going to make it that much better, in my humble opinion, than what else has been done. And so, it's you remember when we were talking about the Prelude? I spent a lot of time on like texture and like tone. So the shock tower bar. Right, remember we spent like 30 minutes debating should I powder coat it the same black,
raw,
right? Because on my personal build, there's a lot of matte finishes, Cerakote ceramic finishing, anodizing, clear. They call it clear anodizing or gold anodizing, powder coating, right? And all of these different things, and sometimes it's color, sometimes it's finish, sometimes it's texture. So you powder coat a bunch of pieces, texture black, satin black, matte black, wrinkle black, right? And you just want to figure out which one do you like. And I think a lot of people don't realize that it takes a lot of planning and to make it look like you just picked black, but you didn't just pick black. And so, anyways, texture and tone and color coordination is a really big thing. I mean, I'm sure it is to everyone, but I'm a little OCD about certain things. And so this build is going to be very much utilizing the obvious, right? Billet, large plenum, good airflow, quality fabrication. But instead of piecing things together, a lot of things are going to just be straight up cut out of billet, right? There are some of that stuff that exists, but I either don't like it or it's just aesthetically different. It's not that I don't like it, it's just different than how I want it. And it's a very time-consuming and expensive process to design something and cut it out of billet. Because you can design it 100 times over, and the first time you cut it, you're going to have to change something. It's like, it just doesn't work that way instantly. I mean, it could, but so this build is just, it's very much about presentation, art, and the beauty of machined metal. I think machining and tooling marks are beautiful. Like that shock tower bar, instead of powder coating it the black of the cowl and the black of the radiator support and all the dimple dyed stuff, it was all the heat marks, from where the tigging is happening. I think it's artistic. Yeah, and so what it was is it's stainless. It's got that tone and the heat marks from where it's getting hit with the welding, and then it was powder coated in like a satin clear, right? A matte satin clear instead of a gloss one, to make it look like it actually doesn't look like it's powder coated.
No.
Right? You have to touch it to then realize it's not raw metal, but it was to lock in that finish work of all the heat effect, the thermal effect, and
it was honestly like the best decision you could have made.
Thank you.
Bar, I think.
Thank you.
Because I mean,
the black would have just toned it down to whatever.
It could have been an off the shelf piece at that point.
Sure.
It takes all the work out of it.
Sure. I agree.
And then you just did it in clear with the satin texture on top. You can't see it ever being something that you would just buy off the shelf.
Right.
Like that, it shows that it was made literally one off for the car.
And it was made one off for the car,
yeah.
but like what he's saying is it would have lost that
Yeah.
because it would have just been. Now, granted, it would have been black that matched 50 other things around it, but still, I agree. I agree with you, and I know that might sound kind of cheesy, but that's how much effort is like, yo, should I powder coat this? The same thing as what's above it, below it, and to the side of it, which would seem like a no-brainer. But in the end, I think it was Ryan and one or two other guys who were like, I don't know, man, maybe you should really look a little bit more into the raw. And I'm really glad that I did that. But
yeah, you're definitely stressing over it.
Oh, dude, I was, guys. What am I gonna say? I was.
Yeah, but you have to.
For that's the stuff that separates good from great, right?
Yeah, I think
the details, right?
Yeah.
And so this client's build, there's gonna be a lot of just showcasing the beauty of metalwork, right? Whether that be the beading, whether that be the tooling marks. I mean, I just think that it is the most fantastic thing to see these like channels, right? Of just the way the machines just watch a 5-axis cut something out of metal. And a lot of times because of a coat and a finish, which is necessary in like the hot side of the turbo. But other times, this build is gonna basically just showcase the art of machining, tooling, welding, right? And so it's not gonna have a lot of bright colors. The only brightness of it is going to be what metal looks like when it's machined, like billet pieces.
Do you have an idea of like what color you're going to do on the car? You don't have to say it, but is that or is it
the client
like
really likes the
nicely?
OE color?
Okay.
Right, and it's been repainted. And the color, it's a beautiful OE Honda color. You guys will see it, and so that does play a role because if it was a color that I think, which would have just been subjective to me, didn't really work and complement billet, right? Then I would have then considered, because it's not just one piece. You're not going to just, I get what people are doing with a titanium charge pipe or a cold air arm, right? And I think the art of seeing it, whether they burn the whole thing, burn the edges, or a lot of guys are doing titanium with no burn,
or just
the
coloring it.
Yeah, just the color of the pie cuts or whatever. I think it looks awesome. But for me, when I see whether it be an OEM or an aftermarket intake manifold that's going to have a cast finish, and then you have this like amazing titanium arm, I don't necessarily know if I like that. I kind of just want to see continuity.
Yeah.
Right? And so right.
All these different things.
Right.
Too many different things.
And there's a way to do that, which I think guys are doing it amazingly with titanium or polishing this or powder coating that. And it looks great, but there's something about having a certain continuity of things. So like on that car, the hot side was all one color and the cold side was all another, because the way my mind works, it's going in this way and into the intercooler, and now it's cool again. So something about that routing is how I ended up doing my car. This car, I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be straight up raw billet, or brushed if it's handmade, welded. Yeah, like a brushed and then satin clear, like I did to that shock tower bar. Shout out to Dana at ASC for making that one for me with water jetting the ends and stuff. And so that's kind of what it is. I don't want to coat much. I want you guys, when the hood is opened, whether it be in print or a digital feature, SEMA, whatever, I want it to just be straight up the art of machining and hand tooling and hand created beading and welding and cutting and machining, right? So that's what this is going to be, right? It's not going to be reinventing the wheel. It's going to be a turbo setup that is going to simply catch your eye because of the art of what that technology can do. Having a certain size throttle body, a certain size charge pipe, a certain intake manifold, it's compressed air, comes out of a manifold. The process of a turbo is there. I'm not reinventing that. The only thing that will be on there that doesn't exist anywhere else is we just named it what we wanted to, and the Big Mike Edition rye wire, the setup we did on my car, which it's only come up.
What are you talking about, the triggering?
Yeah, the cam trigger. So we did a cam trigger setup, which the premise, you either read from the top or the bottom, right? You have a sensor at the crank or you have a sensor at the camshafts. Well, on my setup, we did both. So OEM Honda Accords read at the crank. We created a cam, trigger, and sprockets that have the it's
Magnets.
the
Yeah.
magnets are integrated into it, and then created. I'm using an Infinity, so virtually any standalone would be able to do this. But now it's reading the timing from both top and bottom, cam and crank, which is the most accurate you can get, and it's really cool to do. Very understated piece, and so that's what's going to be. It's going to be the second vehicle to have that one that we created. Um, but other than that, it's my engine bay is very subdued in many ways. This one is going to be not. It's going to be bright, in your face, not polished, not chrome bright, machine bright. I know a lot of you guys understand the finish of metal beating, of when there's weld work, of brushed aluminum, satin finishes, or just straight up raw billet.
So you think that any steel parts are going to be like with that clear?
That's what I am intending
That's
right
cool.
now.
Yeah.
So take stainless, but brush off the discoloration, and then satin clear it.
Yeah.
So you have just fluid coloring. So not, I love titanium and burning titanium. I think it looked great. I just imagine this just being just all one type of feel, metal, raw metal. And a lot of times, I think without realizing it, that gets covered inadvertently by finishes and colors.
By the coatings.
By the coatings. Yeah. So this is how I have it in my head. We'll see the execution of it. A lot of pieces are being made, small ones to big ones that are one-off. But it's just going to be a very solid, interestingly enough, around the 600 horsepower range for a turbo setup, standalone, wire electronics, the PDM, the engine harness, the charge harness, a couple of very subtle things that most people aren't going to really catch unless you get underneath there or zoom in, which will come to light, and that's what this build's about. So as far as it's really up to the client if they want that information out there. What chassis is it? What color is it? Or if they even want it to be at SEMA. And if it's not, then it'll be somewhere else to the discretion of them, right? But Ryan's car, I'm really excited about because of how different it is. He's my friend. The innovation of it, the difficulty of it, right? And so what you're hearing about is how he said 8 months ago you knew nothing about it.
Yeah, right.
But you immerse yourself in it. I mean, you have to run Rywire, but when you have your personal time, you dedicate it. And that's really the difference, guys, is that you have to be borderline obsessive, right? If you're married, if you have children, if you have this and that, it's different for everybody, right? Which is why I'm always talking about on my channel, on the podcast, don't let social media force you to follow a path or a timeline, right? You have to be okay with just doing what you envision, even if it takes longer than people think it should have. People don't know your financial situation.
Or your time.
Yeah, your time, So, really as we progress, guys, as we do more car talk episodes, it's right now we spend a lot of time talking about SEMA, what it is, what it can be used for, the networking, the inspiration, etc. And cars that are going to debut, Ryan's build. And as we do more car talk, there are going to be other episodes that are more about industry culture, the progression, the regression, what's good, what's bad. And as people who've been in it now for about 20 years, there's a certain amount of perspective that we have. But it's not about being right or wrong. We learn, we read. If you're younger and than us and you have a different perspective, share it. When you watch this video on YouTube, you guys, talk to us, comment, tell us what you agree with. Tell us what you don't agree with, but let's have a conversation because it's about dialogue, right? If you have an idea for an episode, we will read the comments and we will create an episode as much as possible for what you guys want us to talk about. This is not about just watching. Oh, I like it, I dislike it, but that's it. It shouldn't stop there. You want to ask Ryan questions, comment, go to his personal page, come to mine, and we can help each other, right? If you know something, if you're like, oh, dude, I did this in high school or in college. I'm an electrical engineer. I just haven't had time. I had kids. But what if you did this? You never know. It might be the spark, pun intended, that could totally guide and help. So that's what we're all about. You know, it's about the community. Car Talk is about the community, the industry, the scene, the culture, and the business of it all, right? And builds business and communication, right? So um, we appreciate you guys. This is just the first one. As you can see, we're just, it's very informal, right? We're just talking with each other and to you guys about a subject. But I mean, Ryan, like, what do you think? I mean, what do you think we should do the next one
on? What should we do the next one on?
I mean, I have a bunch of ideas, but I'm serious, you guys.
Yeah,
comment. When you watch it, comment. We will read it and be like, you know what, that's a perfect idea, and we'll do one based on what you guys want us to talk about, right? But I mean, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, but you're putting me on the spot now.
Okay, I apologize.
I don't know. Like, let's see. I mean, what I'm into is not always what the other person's into,
of course,
right? So I mean, like a popular thing is to talk about like what's developing at like auto salon or something across the world.
Sure. That's true. Indonesia, auto salon, the Thai car scene is crazy. Yeah. The UK car scene. There's a lot of international stuff.
We're probably going back to Indonesia.
Going back to Indonesia as long as borders open, because right now the Indonesian borders are still closed. Mm. But the last time I talked to the guys over there, they said that I'm not sure what the proper term is, the Ministry of Travel, right? The proper governmental. I was talking to them last night. They said that they believe October is fine. So God willing it is, due to the COVID over there. Because, Jakarta in Indonesia is an extremely dense city. Extremely. Yeah. So the caseload for COVID and its potential to just continue growing is unfortunately very high because it's densely populated. So we'll see. But Ryan and I have been there together once, and this might be the second time. So that's another thing that we have the ability to really speak on is our experience outside of just our bubble. We are open to other sides of things, other perspectives, other cultures.
We could have one whole episode about like the Indonesia car scene.
The Indonesia car scene,
and then we could have another episode about the Japanese car scene.
Right.
So there's that, of course.
There's always that. And so that's a thing, right? Being able to travel. Ryan's done Guam, Australia, Indonesia, Japan. I've done the UK, Belgium, Germany, Indonesia. And so there's like all these perspectives, that we are very blessed to have. And instead of letting that experiences go to waste, we're going to talk about them and share, go back and forth here on Car Talk with you guys. So we appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one.